In this video, we're going to go over how to set up a cold email campaign in Smartlead. This is the brand new Smartlead account that we just created as part of this series. And if you're just tuning in, then we are going through the entire end-to-end lead gen engine setup. And right now we are ready to load in the email sequences that we just write. And right now we are ready to load in the email sequences that we just wrote in the previous video. So what we're going to do is create a campaign in Smartlead. And I'm going to show you the settings that if you don't select them, you're going to make it really difficult for your deliverability. So the first thing you're going to do is actually click create campaign. The next step is to upload your lead list. So I have a temporary lead list that I have created. So I'm going to go ahead and upload that. And there are a couple settings here. As a general practice, you want to keep the first two unchecked. If somebody unsubscribed from your email, you do not want to put them in another campaign, because if they see your name again, they see your company again, most likely they're going to mark you as spam, especially if they unsubscribed to you before. The other one here that I like to uncheck, that Smartlead actually automatically checks, is if leads bounce across their entire database, I do not want to email those. So I like to uncheck this, because again, if other cold emailers are using Smartlead and that email bounced, then why would I want to put my domain at risk by sending to an email that we know has bounced? So I usually uncheck that one. And then ignore leads that are in an existing campaign. This won't matter if you set up your first campaign, but as you go on in the future, you might want to segment your lists out. So typically my imports look like this, and I click save. Now, once you do that, Smartlead is going to show you what your list looks like, and then they're going to try to map it automatically to known columns in their database. The real reason they do this is so that when we go to the next step, if you say hi first name, they're actually pulling that person's real first name that you have mapped in the spreadsheet. So if these are mismapped and you put last name where first name belongs and you mismatch these, then you're going to send out a bunch of cold emails where people are like, what is going on here? Clearly you don't know, like this person is spamming, and they'll report you as spam. So it's important to get these right so that you match the right names. If you reference their company, you want to make sure that you're not referencing something that doesn't exist in your spreadsheet, or that the company name format is actually formatted correctly for being able to upload to an email. So I'll show you what this looks like in a second. So let's go over to the next one. Is going to show you where we write the sequences. Here you can see we imported 36 leads. Obviously, when you import, you're going to import thousands. Okay, this is just a test email sequence. Now, this is what I was talking about, variables. So if you wanted to say hi first name, I'll show you what this looks like. Hi first name. Do you still manage content at company name? Let's do here, company name. And then you click here. So now this is just a test, guys. So what I wanted to show you is the preview, right? So let's say you're sending this to James. Did it automatically say, hi, James? Do you still manage content at, and then James's company? You can test that on different emails within the list, right? And you can see this one, this is a good example. This one didn't have a first name in the first name column in your source. So again, sometimes you have to check your lead list. So if I look at my lead list and like some of these informations are missing, it might be a sign that like, okay, I need to filter those columns out before I upload my lead list. So just be careful of that, right? This is one of the reasons why we pull data from Apollo, because typically Apollo has all of these information already preloaded. Now, this particular set of data, I scraped it, right? So I scraped it. So anytime you're scraping stuff, it's just taking what it has available. So for now, I'm going to leave it in because it's a test campaign and we're not going to launch it, but just be aware of that. Okay. So anytime you're using variables, if those don't exist in your upload, then obviously Smartlead is not going to magically know what the person's first name is. So let's go ahead and actually import that sequence that we had written. So this one was Nick. Is this working? Right. So instead of Nick, like I said, we want to put the variable of first name. So I'm going to take that code and put that here. Right. And then what was the second email? Second line, this one here. Let's just copy the rest of this. I like to space these out. I know some people like to just copy and paste them in, but I think many people skim. And if you don't space them out, nobody's actually going to read the block of text. Looks like you're gaining traction on YouTube for company. So now here we need to insert a variable, company name. This one's already linked. Now, this is interesting. Some people here, they put the little signature, like percent, signature, percent. In my opinion, this is a hit or miss. When I've tested it on Smartlead, it didn't send with the signature, it sent with this code. And so I never want to take that chance because again, we're talking about being compliant here. So I want to make sure that I am manually inputting like my name, right? So I do founder and CEO, and then company name on one line. And then I do address. And then as you can see here, this is my opt-out line. Again, these are some settings that people won't tell you, but I personally do a manual opt-out line instead of trying to actually make Smartlead insert their unsubscribe link. Because when you insert that unsubscribe link, it's a trigger again to the sending platforms like Outlook or Google that you are indeed sending mass emails. And so what I like to do is instead include my own version of a compliant opt-out line that if they reply no, me or my team or an automation will manually unsubscribe them and put them on the unsubscribe list or the global block list. The reason we do that is again for deliverability. It's not because Smartlead can't do this automatically. You might be looking at this and saying, why do you need to do that? You can do it automatically. Well, doing it automatically might mean your email lands in spam. Do you still want to do it? Of course not. Some of these manual things are done on purpose. All right, so now that we've written our first email, you can test variation. So like say you don't know if this email is best for the first email or another version. Or if you want to split test like this title, a subject line versus another one with the same email, you can literally do that. You copy this and you go to the split test variation here, and then you can be like, hey, you put a one line email, subject line, something like that. You can split test. By the way, always save. There's times where I've worked in Smartlead, done a bunch of work, and then I didn't save, and then the thing kind of froze on me and I lost all my progress. Highly recommend you save. The next one is follow-up sequences. So here we talked about writing 6 to 7 follow-up sequences. So if you didn't watch my last video, we have a ChatGPT custom built tool that will write these sequences for you. So for example, if we just say, hey, now write me follow-up sequences, it'll go ahead and now generate maybe 5 to 6 follow-up sequences based on my offer. You can see it's like writing the follow-up sequence here, the second one, the third one, the fourth one, right? Again, I will take these and preload them into my sequence here. So let's just go back over to Smartlead. Okay, so this was my subject. And again, don't use the code that these guys produce in ChatGPT. Use the actual code that Smartlead produces for that variable. Otherwise, it won't work. Delete all the little extra stuff. And then again, what you're going to want to do is copy these signature and opt-out line and then put it in. Real quick, let me show you where the signatures can be inputted. So if you go to Smartlead and you sign in, so this is a dummy inbox that we created. You'll go over to email account. This is the email that we linked. Inside of this, if you go to general, they actually have the ability for you to type out your signature here. But like I said, when I tested this, it's hit or miss, right? If you want to automate everything, you have to live with the fact that sometimes the automations won't work. I personally don't want to live with that risk. If I'm going to get fined, it's not because the automations didn't work. I want to make sure that I did everything possible to manually send my compliant address and my compliant opt-out. Okay, moving back to our email campaign. So let's just say we're going to add 6 or 7 of these follow-ups, and then we're going to give it like maybe 3 days. Wait 3 days before following up because we don't want to bug people. The next steps are going to be important settings that impact your deliverability. So the first one is selecting which inboxes you're going to send them out to. Typically, you can send like 30 to 50 a day without any issues. You can link as many inboxes as you want. As long as you have enough leads, it'll send. The next one is scheduling a campaign. This is just about when your campaign starts, which days it sends. I typically only send on weekdays. By the way, this is the times it sends in between, right? You can tweak these like 8 to 6 or 9 to 5 or whatever. Obviously, if you have a bigger sending window, then you can space your emails out a little bit more. You don't want to be sending emails 10 minutes apart, right? That's a little bit of a flag to the email service providers because at a time zone like this, it'll shoot off 60 emails a day and it's just too short of a time frame. Typically, that's why we want to do like 20 minutes in between each. That's more of a realistic time frame. So as a campaign level, you can do 1,000, right? Because this particular campaign might have 10 inboxes linked to it. And then you got to choose a start date. So we want to choose a start date after our warming period. So since we started this recently, this might be our warming period is over here. And then choose a time zone. I live in New York, so I typically type that in and then click save. So what we just did there, just so you know, is determine that 30 emails a day will go out, okay, based on the time interval. We determine when those emails will go out, which days of the week they will go out, when this campaign will start, and how many total emails per day will be sent out of this campaign. Now, this won't be reached unless you have the sufficient enough inboxes linked. So if you don't have enough inboxes, it's not going to reach this number just random. It's going to limit it to 30 per count. Now for the meat and potatoes. These are the settings that really matter. Okay, well, you can name your campaign. This is just a test. I won't actually send these. I stop messages when they reply. because the moment they reply, I want to then put them into a different sequence. Alternatively, if you send a link in your first email, which I don't recommend, you could trigger a subsequence for that, but it's up to you. For me, I like to make sure I send it as plain text. Again, plain text does not send any HTML in the email, which will make it boost deliverability. Highly recommend plain text emails. What should we not track? Don't track email opens, don't track links. So the reason they're saying this is because if they have to track things, basically they have to put code into the email. So if I tell it to send us plain text, then they can't put any code. So don't track those things. This setting is just about like, okay, you only have 30 emails a day. Do you want me to follow up with people, or do you want me to send out to new leads more? Which one do you prefer? Usually follow-ups are better because we want to nurture, continue to nurture, and get people responding to us or making a decision. Company level auto pause. So this is like if you're emailing 10 people at the same company, if one of them replies, then you want to pause sending to the other people. Because like, say the CEO replies, well, you don't want to keep following up with the manager. That doesn't make any sense. The CEO already replied to you. You're having a conversation with him or her. You don't need to follow up with the people under them. This is, always check this, in my opinion. Enhance sending and deliverability. I like to auto-analyze leads and mailbox providers, but again, if you're just using Google, this won't matter. This will matter if you're using both Outlook and Google. For you guys, I did put together an option here, optional, where you can set up your Outlook inbox and your Google inbox. And so this is something called provider matching, essentially, right? What they're doing is if you have an Outlook inbox and you're sending from an Outlook inbox and the person that's receiving the email has an Outlook inbox, then theoretically your deliverability should be higher. And the same for Gmail. If it's a Gmail inbox, sending to a Gmail inbox should be higher. So what this setting says is like, if you realize the sender has an Outlook inbox, send it from one of my Outlook inboxes. If you realize the sender had, or the email receiver that you're sending to, the person on your list, if you realize that that person has a Gmail inbox, then you want to match it to a Gmail inbox. So that improves your deliverability. Some people say it doesn't. Some people say it does. If you have the inboxes, turn them on. If you don't, then just move on with your day. The one I like to check here is the intelligent categorization, because whenever somebody's out of office, we don't want to keep following up with them. We want to automatically restart the sequence when they return. And I also want to ignore that reply from my reply percentage, because I don't want that to count like in my metrics. It's just going to cloud my metrics if I'm just counting a bunch of out of office. This one I always check. And for me, anything above 2 to 3%, I like to trigger. So I'll put 3% here. Essentially what it's saying is like, if you're getting a lot of bounces, or 3% bounces or 2% bounces or whatever you want to call it here, essentially you messed up somewhere in cleaning your list. Like your list is not actually clean. You want to stop that before it just wrecks your domain and you can no longer send emails from that inbox. This basically auto pauses it so that you don't run into that situation. The next one here is unsubscribe. So I already talked to you about this, which is I put the manual unsubscribe link. So we do not check this off. The other thing is, if you check this off, you'll have to send it with HTML, which again lowers deliverability. So you don't want to do that. And so those are the settings that I typically use and what's worked for me. And then once you're done, it's just save and next, and then schedule the campaign. So they give you a little bit of a review here, so you can click through. Obviously, some of these guys don't have first names like this, you see? So this one won't work. And that's why you want to click through and just check a few of them, right? To make sure that whatever you're sending out is looking good. You can also send a test email to yourself, which I've done before. And that's how I actually found out that the signature option didn't work. The thing I like though is that the signature automatically gets grayed out. So you can add like a PS here. It kind of like breaks the flow, attracts the eyes. So if you ever want to say something additional, PS at the bottom of your signature is actually a pretty good option. And that's it. Then you schedule a campaign. Now for this video, I won't schedule the campaign, but essentially now you know how to end-to-end set up a Smartlead campaign. And in the next video, we're actually going to jump over to YouTube to show you advanced settings so that once people reply, you can point them to a channel where they trust you, see you, understand you, and actually want to work with you.